Alrighty, welcome to the tutorial on how to basically take an image that you have drawn on paper and take it into Photoshop and do some editing using your programs. This is specifically for our lettering poster project. However, you can use this approach to digitize and then edit any piece that you want to draw, mostly yourself, on paper. So basically, I have scanned my drawing that I drew on a piece of paper, and I have saved it in my downloads. For this project, our artboard is 8.5 inches by 11 inches. You could also do 11 by 8.5 if you wanted it to be a landscape format. And make sure that your units are inches and your resolution is set to 300 pixels per inch, not centimeter, and that your color mode is in RGB. Remember, Photoshop is tricky and there are some things that you can't do in CMYK, and so that's why it's really important to work in RGB. You can always save in CMYK if you're going to be printing later. Okay, so okay, I'm sorry, that my settings were weird. Okay, so now that I've got my artboard, I'm going to place my image. So I'm going to go up to File, Place, and navigate to where I saved that. It was actually in my downloads, this image 0427, I believe. Yes, so this was my picture that I scanned in. Actually, I took a photo of it and emailed it to myself, or airdropped it to myself, which I recommend scanning as opposed to this method because there can be some variation. You're gonna get a flatter surface if you can scan. Okay, so as you can see, I've rotated my picture so that it is across a horizontal line, and you can see here that there are some like I had tried writing some different E's that I wasn't happy with, and so I'll just put little X's over those because that's something I can easily fix now that I'm in kind of post-production of this. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my layers panel. If you don't see your layers panel over here to the right, you can always go to Window, Layers, and then it'll pop up. Everyone's toolbar over here on the right can look different. And so you're going to do a new fill or adjustment layer. That's the little half moon down here at the bottom of your layers. And the first one you're going to do is black and white. Basically, this just ensures that the only two colors on your artboard are black and white, and then obviously gray. Okay, you can see the difference when I toggle between the view. Okay, the next adjustment layer I'm going to do, that same little half moon icon, is a levels adjustment layer. Okay, this is a levels adjustment layer. Okay, this shows all the blacks, whites, and grays. Blacks, grays, and whites on your image or your artboard. Okay, this one on the far left adjusts the blacks or darks in your piece, hence why it's black. This one adjusts your whites, and so what I'm doing is I'm just clicking on it, holding down, and then sliding. Okay, and this adjusts like your grays in between, okay? So basically, if you move this one over, there's going to be more black in your composition. If you move this one over, there's going to be more white, okay? And what I'm trying to achieve is basically where there are little to no grays in my piece, okay? So you can see as I drag them closer together, there is more black and white and less gray, okay? The further apart they are, there are more grays in my piece. I hope that makes sense. So basically, I'm trying to isolate to where everything is black or white, okay? For demonstration purposes, I feel like that's good. And now, remember, this is for if you're going to be working in Photoshop only. There's a different video if you are going to be vectorizing your piece and then manipulating it in Illustrator. This is where we there's a fork in the road. And so now if you are looking for the Illustrator video, there is a different link for that, okay? So basically, I have my background layer, which is the white layer, my image, a black and white adjustment layer, and now a levels adjustment layer. And if I decide, actually I don't want this gray in here, I can always go back and double click in that levels layer in my layers palette panel, and I can go back and do some more adjusting, okay? So now I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Now is where you can clean up your piece. So for example, these little mess ups that I want to erase, or this is kind of the edge of the page. What I'm gonna do is basically hide those so that you can't see them, okay? And I'm going to do that by adding a layer mask, which is down here. It's a little white rectangle with a circle cut out. If I click it once, you can see it adds a mask to my lettering layer. Okay, now I'm going to use my brush. Okay, remember the shortcut for your brush tool is B for brush. And you can use the brackets, which are just to the right of the P on your keyboard. The opening bracket makes your brush smaller. The closing bracket makes your brush larger, okay? And remember, white shows, so hence everything on my mask is white, so everything is showing right now. If I flip-flop my color palette, my foreground and background colors, now I have black, and remember, black hides. So anything I paint over with black is hiding it, okay? Command Z or undo. And basically we want to use a mask because this way it's just hiding the pieces that we don't want. You really want to try to avoid erasing, because once you erase something you can't get it back. But if you simply hide it with a mask, and then you decided, oh, actually, and then you go off and do some other things, and let's say you hide this and hide that and hide out this word, and then you decide, actually, I kind of want to go back and see that E that I had written there. All you have to do is flip to your white brush and you can show it again. So again, that's why it's important to use a mask. So you're just hiding things. You're not erasing them for good. Okay. So these little E's I had messed up on, and so I'm going to hide those. Okay. And then what I'm going to be able to do is actually duplicate this E over here, and then eliminate this space between the R and the I. And then I'm going to be able to move the word poster up and space it out with some nice kerning, okay? But first, I want to make sure that I've got everything cleaned up, okay? So if you have some little stray areas around your lettering that you would like to clean up, now would be a good time to do that. Let's say you actually, I kind of feel like I didn't get enough black going right here. So another thing you can do is create a new layer all the way at the very top. Again, we're using our black brush. I'm going to make it smaller using my open bracket. And this way you can paint using a black brush onto a new layer, okay? So you see that I'm affecting this layer up here at the top, layer 1. So let's say I wanted to like add to this a little, smooth it out. I'm on a trackpad, so forgive my messiness here. Let's say I wanted to smooth this out. Widen it a little bit, okay? I'm just making edits to this top layer, okay? And if I toggle on and off, you can see that I'm only affecting this layer, okay? I'm not actually drawing on my lettering piece, okay? I can also use the eraser here if I know for sure that I don't want that part back, okay? All right, that's good enough for example purposes, okay? So I've got my lettering just how I like it. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically isolate or target everything that's black on my artboard, okay? I need you to hang with me. This is gonna be kind of complicated. If you have to go back and watch this part of the video every single time that you do this, that's a-okay. I used to write this down because a coworker showed it to me, and I had to write it down for the first several months that I was working, because otherwise I knew I was just going to be bugging that guy to help me every time, okay? So no shame in recording the steps that you take, okay? So first I'm going to go to my channels palette, I guess. If you don't have channels over here to the right, again, go up to window and click channels, okay? If it's checked, it'll pop up for you, okay? And on your channels palette, this is kind of complicated. Basically, because everything is black, all of these layers are going to look the same, okay? So right now, all of these are visible, okay? If I click inside the white area of one of them, it will toggle all the other ones off except the one I'm clicked on, okay? Again, they're all the same because the only two colors I have right now are black and white. But if we had some reds or greens or blues in our composition, then these would look different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Command, and you can see there's a little box that pops up by my mouse. While I hover over the white area of the artboard in my channels, I'm holding down Command and I'm going to click. Okay, and you can see on my artboard that there are now marching ants, or a marquee selection around everything. And what this does is when you hold down Command and click, that selects everything on your artboard that is white. Okay, being that we want to isolate the black, we now need to flip-flop or inverse our selection. The shortcut for that is Command-Shift-I. Hold down Command, hold down Shift, hit I, or you can go up to Select, Inverse. Okay, and it tells you your shortcuts. Command, the up arrow is short for shift, and then I. And now that flip-flops our selection, and you can see that now everything that is black is selected. Okay? So I need to turn my all of my RGB channels back on. And again, like I said, if you click in the white area of the RGB channel, they will all toggle back on. Okay? Now I need to go back. This step is very important. You always need all of your channels on, okay? Or your colors are going to be wonky and off. Just take my word for it. Layers, you're going to go back to your layer palette, create a new layer with this little new layer icon. And now basically we're going to fill our selection with a color. Okay, I'm going to change my foreground color to be kind of a dark red for just so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to go up to edit, and I make sure that I'm in my new layer. Okay, go up to edit and click fill. Okay, when it tells us to use, we don't want to fill it with the content aware. We want to fill it with our foreground color, which will be that red. Okay, remember, this is your foreground color and this is your background color. So I want to fill it with my foreground color. My blending mode is normal, my opacity is 100%, everything looks good, and I click OK. So you can see that it filled everything that we had the marching ants around with that color. And now I need to deselect to get those marching ants to go away. So Command D is deselect, or you can go up to select and hit deselect, Command D. Okay, so if I toggle all of my layers off, and an easy way to do that is to click one of them, hold down your trackpad, and just slide down the rest, and it'll turn all of them off instead of you having to go through and manually click like that. Hold down your trackpad and slide down all of them. Okay, so now you can see that if I turn everything off, I've got my lettering on, it's just my lettering and my words filled. Okay, so now what I can do is use my marquee tool, which is this guy up here beneath your select tool. Make sure that it's on your rectangular marquee tool, or M for marquee. And now you can go and select different parts of your composition and move or adjust. So if I've got this selected and then I go back to my select tool, it's going to, you can see the little scissors, it's going to move whatever I've selected on that layer. Command Z. Go back to my marquee tool. Remember, if you hold down Shift, that will add to your selection. So I want to add this little piece in here because I want to scoot ING over to the left. So back to my select tool. I'm actually going to use my arrows to nudge. So I'm using my left arrow key, and you can see it's only nudging a small amount. So what I'm going to do is hold down Shift, and it actually nudges larger increments. As you can see, I've kind of got an issue going on here. My eye is about to run into the crossbar of my T. So I'm going to go back to my marquee tool. Oh, I've got to deselect first. Select, deselect, or Command D. And so I'm going back to my marquee tool, and I'm actually going to select the crossbar of the T that's kind of in the way, and I'm going to nudge it over so I've got room for my eye. Okay. And as you can see, once I once I do that, that change is committed, okay? I can't go back unless I click undo, okay? So you need to, if you're using this method where you're using the marquee tool to actually move what's on the layer, you need to make sure of your changes before you commit to them. Otherwise, you may go too far and then you have to start over, okay? So I'm moving that over. Okay, there were some marching ants on the screen and that was just a optical illusion. So now I'm using my marquee tool again because I want to copy this E over. And if I hold down shift, remember I'm going to be able to draw little boxes to cover this whole E, if that makes sense. Okay, go back to my select tool. And now, if I hold down Option, I can actually make a copy of this E. Remember, if you hold down Option and you see the little black and white double arrow, that means you're going to make a copy. Because if I just move this, it's simply moving it. But if I hold down Option, it's making a copy. Okay? And so you can see I'm going to run into some spacing issues with this E and the R. So before I do that, I'm going to select, deselect. And I'm actually going to move all of this over. Holding down shift to select multiple areas. I'm actually going to move all of this over because I can move it back. But like I said, once you have overlapping parts and you commit those changes, those changes are done. So you want to be careful in the way that you kind of approach the changes that you're making. Okay. I don't know. I think I'm accidentally right-clicking when I do that. Okay, so I've got my E selected, back to my select tool, holding down Option, and moving that E over. Okay. I think I'm going to nudge it up a little bit so the baseline is more in line. The baseline, remember, is this line that all of your text runs along the bottom, or that runs along the bottom of all your text. Using my marquee tool, back to my select tool, and then I'm moving this back over. You can see that it's staying on the same baseline, and that's because I'm holding down shift when I move my selection. If I don't hold down shift, it's gonna go all over the place. Okay, so I hold down shift to ensure that it stays along the same horizontal line. Okay, how does this connect? This E and this R, they connect pretty well. I'm actually going to do this and then erase this little sharp edge. So select, deselect. E for eraser, or my eraser tool. And then I'm going to very carefully, too much. I'm going to very carefully make those two letters merge together better. Okay, so as you see, the word lettering looks pretty fantastic right now. And now I want to fit the word poster right here in between that L and G. And I want it to sit on this guide that is in line with the bottom of this L. And the way I made that guide is you just make sure your rulers are on. If your rulers are not on, go to View, Rulers, and you can see mine are checked. That means they're on. You just hold down in your rulers and drag a guide out to where you want it to be. I'm actually going to turn my background layer back on so it's not the gray and white checker, but it's a white background. Okay, back to my layer 2 with my words, lettering, and poster. And again, I'm going to use my marquee tool, this one beneath my select tool. And I'm going to select the word poster. Okay, and it looks like it needs to be rotated. So what I'm going to do is my shortcut for transform, which is Command T. Or if I'm not very shortcut savvy, that's no problem. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Free Transform, I'm sorry. Okay, and this allows me, if I kind of hover outside the corners of my selection, I can actually rotate it. Okay, and I need to hit enter to commit those changes, and then Command D or select, deselect. And that looks pretty good, but I actually kind of want some more kerning between my letters. So I'm going to select them one at a time with my marquee tool, go back to my select tool, and nudge them over using my arrow keys again. Back to the marquee tool, select, and nudge them over. And I didn't quite get all of that E, so I'm holding down Shift to add to my selection. Back to my select tool, nudging, back to my, and so if you notice that if I'm on my marquee tool and something is already selected, that's okay. I can make a new selection. I don't have to deselect it every time. I just wanted y'all to know what I was doing. Back to marquee tool, draw my marquee, and that looks pretty good. The only thing is my T is a little short, so I'm going to use my marquee tool, back to my select tool, and again hold down Option to make a copy. I'm just going to drag that little guy down. Select, deselect, Command 0, adjust your view. I'm going to convert this into a smart object by right-clicking on the layer, convert to smart object, and I know it's a smart object because it has that little paper icon in the bottom corner. You can see my original lettering was a smart object as well because I placed that file in there. And remember, smart objects are very important because they don't lose the quality of your original piece. For example, if this were not a smart object and I transformed it and scaled it down super small, and then I tried to enlarge it again, look how blurry that is. I lost all of the great quality of my piece. So I'm going to undo. So that's why it's very important to have smart objects. So if I right click or control click, convert to smart object, and now I shrink it down super small. If I Command T or transform again, I can enlarge it, and I did not lose any of my quality when I shrunk my piece down. Okay, view, I'm going to turn off my guides. where is that? Show guides. Okay, I'm going to turn those off. I'm sorry, I just used the shortcut Command colon. I'm going to turn those off so I can view my lettering poster. And that is how you make edits and adjustments to the piece that you scanned in Photoshop. Please email me if you have any questions, and if any part of this video didn't make sense, ask me in class and I'm happy to show you how to do something.